The movie opens on the banks of a dried river, somewhere on the outskirts of Palmyra in Syria. A convoy of Russian soldiers led by demining expert Captain Dima Shabirov is making its way towards the river. On the other side are the soldiers belonging to the terrorist organization Jaish al-Sham. It is revealed that the two parties are here to exchange hostages. The Russians have brought a prisoner named Jihadi John, a member of the gang notorious for carrying out and filming beheadings. In return, they will be getting back Major Gyllenhaal, who was kidnapped by the terrorist a few weeks ago. Dima is tasked with taking the hostage to the middle ground and retrieving the Russian soldier. Before we can see what transpired in the hostage exchange event, the film shifts back a few months ago. Captain Dima is conducting classes on how to defuse different kinds of bombs. His students are all native Syrian soldiers, many of whom are clearly very young. It is also obvious that the captain is greatly respected for his work in the demining field. In fact, he lost 3 fingers from his right hand while defusing a bomb a few years ago. Nonetheless, the captain teaches these young boys the fundamentals of various kinds of bombs. They have the traditional rudimentary bombs, which only include simple wires. Then there are more complex kinds of explosive devices, like gyroscopic bombs. These have a sensor consisting of a wheel or disc, which is free to spin rapidly about an axis. When this sensor is even slightly disturbed, it triggers the bomb, killing the unfortunate people around it. After weeks of grueling training, the soldiers are finally ready for their test. The class travels to a nearby joint Syrian-American army base, where their exams will be conducted. They travel on army vehicles and encounter a small white van on the way. Dima notices that the van is carrying a local woman who seems to be going in the same direction as them. His guess turns out to be true. The van stops near the army base shortly after they arrive. However, Dima quickly goes into work mode and tells the commanding officer to jam any radio signals coming in the area. This is a part of a safety protocol that serves to stop incoming signals for remote control bombs. He then inquires about the civilians present, and one of the Syrian soldiers tells him not to worry about them. Although Dima isn't satisfied with the answer, he proceeds with his duty. The captain's eyes keep falling on the woman who disembarked from the white van earlier. She is dressed in a simple hijabi outfit while carrying a cute backpack. It is obvious that Dima is attracted to her incredible beauty. Shortly afterwards, he lines up the students and briefs them about the exam. There is a small plot of land in front of the army base that has been sealed off. Inside the area is a live landmine that can go off if anyone trips over it. The students are required to work as a group and defuse the landmine. This way, if one of them screws up, the whole class dies. Soon the exam begins, and the Syrian soldiers enter the sealed area in protective gear. The atmosphere is tense as one wrong step can cause a huge catastrophe. After a short while, one of the soldiers named Mosalim finds the landmine under a plastic bag. Dima watches on as his student drops to his knees and prepares to defuse the bomb. Mosalim is incredibly nervous and continuously prays as he works through the wiring, but he manages to unplug the circuit, effectively stopping the bomb from going off. Following this success, the entire army base along with the students are in the mood of celebration. Dima congratulates them and reveals that their course completion certificate will be given back in the camp. The students then put down their equipment and start singing and dancing. While this is going on, Dima is approached by the Syrian woman from earlier. The duo then have a chat and slowly stroll away from the army base. Turns out the woman's name is Jamila, and she is half Russian, half Syrian. She thanks the captain for his service in this war-torn country. During their conversation, Jamila reveals that she had been waiting for a call from someone, but her phone has stopped working ever since she got off near the army base. This is because Dima had ordered all the radio signals in the area to be jammed. Now that the test is over, he tells his men to get the communication back up and running. Jamila is happy to get her phone network back and thanks the captain. Right at this moment, Dima's men call him back to the army base to celebrate. His students are eagerly waiting to take a picture with him. Dima then asks Jamila to wait for a while and begins to walk towards the base. The latter tries to stop him and says she wants to tell him something. However, the captain promises he will be back in a few minutes and begins to jog towards his students. Seconds later, a bomb goes off right underneath the army base. A massive fireball rises up and parts of human bodies fly off in all directions. Dima, who is still away from the base, is also thrown several feet away due to the whiplash. After a while, he regains consciousness, only to see dismembered bodies of soldiers lying around. He is dizzy and has a sharp sound ringing in his ears. As Dima stumbles towards a Russian rescue helicopter, he finds Jamila's backpack on the ground. She is lying nearby, unconscious but alive. All the survivors, including Jamila and the captain, are then taken to the nearest Russian army camp. The following day, 2 high-ranking officials arrive at the camp to question Dima. He is one of the very few people who survived the terrorist attack. The officials want to know what exactly had happened leading up to the explosion, but it quickly becomes clear to them that the captain is still suffering the after effects of the blast, so they decide to send him back home on a medical leave. Dima is unhappy with this decision, but he is asked to pack his bags. Shortly afterwards, he goes to collect his belongings, and the officer in charge also hands him Jamila's backpack. It is revealed that she had already left by the time Dima was discharged from the hospital. However, the backpack contains her mobile phone, among several other everyday items. Dima is still enamored by the local woman and desperately wants to meet her before retiring. He then takes her mobile and puts it in his own luggage. A few days later, Dima is waiting at the airport to board a flight back to Russia. In the same airport, another Russian troop is on its way to the city of Palmyra. The soldiers are going there to fight against ISIS terrorists and free the city from their terror. However, when one of the D-miners in the troop suddenly gets sick, Dima is ordered to replace him. Just as he had wished, the captain now gets a chance to meet his lady love. The scene then shifts as Dima heads to the city of Palmyra along with his new group. On the way, they get the news that a small Russian troop is being pinned down by ISIS terrorists in a nearby village. They then take a detour to provide backup for their fellow soldiers. Soon afterwards, they arrive at the outskirts of the village and head straight into the battle zone. The commanding officer of the new group, Major Gyllenhaal, orders everyone to stay back and not engage. Amidst the flying bullets and explosions, Jamila's phone, which is safely in Dima's pocket, starts to ring. The captain picks it up and is extremely delighted to hear Jamila speaking on the other end. Turns out she also lives in Palmyra, the same city where the Russian troop is headed. He promises to meet her there once he finishes his duty. At this moment, one of the Russian tanks is hit by an ISIS explosive. The soldiers inside are now badly wounded, but cannot fall back to safety because of enemy fire. When Captain Dima sees this, he decides to save his countrymen, disregarding the orders from his commanding officer. He bravely sneaks by the tank and drags an injured soldier back to safety. Although Gyllenhaal is incensed, he too joins Dima in rescuing the Russian soldier from the line of fire. After this brave and slightly stupid rescue operation, the troop heads back to their destination. They soon reach Palmyra, but are immediately thrown into yet another mission. This time it involves a huge gas production plant in the middle of a desert on the outskirts of the city. The group packs their equipment and heads towards the given location. Once they reach it, commanding officer Gyllenhaal finally realizes the gravity of the task. The gas production plant covers a large area, which is scattered with improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. On top of that, this area is very prone to terrorist attacks due to its strategic location. Dima is then given the task to defuse the bombs as soon as possible. He immediately gets to work, only to make a shocking discovery. There is a live tripwire going from the IEDs to a nearby building. He cautiously follows the wire and comes across two terrorists who are engaged in prayer. Without waiting for instructions, Dima shoots both of them down. To his relief, one of them was holding the detonator to the IEDs. Dima then defuses multiple explosives in the area by cutting off the main tripwire. A few minutes later, he rejoins Gyllenhaal and the rest of the group who are waiting outside the plant's boundary. Dima also has a suicide vest laced with explosives that he retrieved from one of the terrorists. He then defuses the explosives and heads away from the others to bury the vest. Right then, a terrorist car approaches the gas plant. The Russian troop starts shooting at the car, but it keeps on coming. Commanding officer Gyllenhaal grabs a rocket launcher and manages to hit the underside of the vehicle, but it's too late, and the car eventually crashes right into the gas plant. The bomb attached to the vehicle goes off, and a huge explosion engulfs the whole area. Several soldiers are killed, but both Gyllenhaal and Dima manage to survive. This is the second time in the past week that the captain has escaped death by the skin of his teeth. Despite the horrendous setback, there is no time for the troop to rest or even think about what just happened. As soon as they reach back to their base, they are sent to the village of Tadmur to check out rumors of a local well being filled with explosives. Captain Dima is forced to stay back, while Gyllenhaal and his deputy, Lieutenant Makarsky, go ahead to check the authenticity of the matter. After a few minutes, Dima hears a huge explosion from the general direction of the village. He immediately gathers a team of Syrian soldiers and heads towards it. They arrive in Tadmur, only to find it in the middle of a skirmish between Syrian soldiers and a local gang named Josh al-Sham. Dima and his team quickly clear the area of the enemies, but there is a heavy price to be paid. Lieutenant Makarsky has been brutally killed, while Major Gyllenhaal has been captured by the gang. Following this devastating battle, Dima is sent to the city of Palmyra, which is not too far away from Tadmur. He is given the permission to open an investigation to find Gyllenhaal. There, the captain once again receives a call from Jamila, who asks him to meet her. It is also revealed that Dima had gone through a bad divorce a few years ago. Ever since, he has been caught up in this war zone. He has only seen the worst of humanity. But after so many years, he finally has a chance to share some moments of love with a woman. That afternoon, Dima arrives at Jamila's house with a bunch of local flowers. It is revealed that she too lost her family to the ongoing war and craves for love. This enables the duo to find solace in each other and eventually share a passionate kiss. Captain Dima even spends that night in Jamila's bed. The next morning, however, he has to leave early as he receives a possible lead regarding Gyllenhaal's whereabouts. He gathers a few Syrian soldiers and heads to a local market not far off from where he is. They're going there to meet a few gang members who claim to have Gyllenhaal's dead body. However, when they reach the market, the gang members refuse to let anybody check the body unless they get paid grenade first. One of the Syrian soldiers in Dima's group knows it is a trap and signals his friends to stay alert. The atmosphere is already tense, and this only adds more fuel to the fire. In the blink of an eye, a fierce gun battle breaks out. The Syrian soldiers, however, have numerical superiority, which is enough to kill all of the gang members, along with several innocent civilians. In the aftermath of this battle, Dima checks the corpse that the gang members had brought in. Just as one of the Syrian soldiers had suspected, it is not Gyllenhaal's body. This whole meeting was simply a setup to extort money from the Russian army. Nearby, Dima also finds a mobile phone that belonged to one of the gang members. He goes through it and comes across something that shatters his reality. The mobile contains a video in which top leaders of Jaish al-Sham are seen attending a private function. The event is being held in Jamila's home, and she too is seen cozying up with the gang members. Dima suddenly flashes back to the day when an explosion killed his students near a joint Syrian-American army base. The bomb had gone off right after he had ordered the radio signal jammer to be turned off. It was Jamila, standing a safe distance away, who had detonated the bomb through her mobile. Hurt and betrayed, Dima immediately heads back to her house in Palmyra. His fears are confirmed when he sees a Jaish al-Sham gang member talking to her. The captain wastes no time in killing the terrorist, after which he corners Jamila. Eventually, she reveals that Gyllenhaal is still alive, and the gang is willing to let him go in exchange for a hostage. They want Jihadi John, a psychotic criminal known to behead prisoners. In return, Dima agrees, and a meeting is set up for the following day near a dried river on the outskirts of Palmyra. However, before leaving, Captain Dima shoots the woman, for whom he had traveled all the way to this war-torn city. The movie then circles back to the first scene where the hostage exchange is taking place. Captain Dima personally hands Jihadi John to the enemies and receives Gyllenhaal in return. The gang members immediately retreat after getting their man, which makes Dima believe something is wrong. Just then, Gyllenhaal reveals that underneath his jacket, the criminals have fitted an IED vest. This one is a sophisticated gyroscopic explosive, which requires a lot of effort to defuse. After several tense minutes, Dima manages to remove the vest off of Gyllenhaal and asks him to rush to safety, but there is no way to safely defuse the IED, as it is too complicated for a single man. In a heart-wrenching twist of events, Gyllenhaal watches on as Captain Dima sacrifices himself by allowing the explosive to go off.